Great. So, well, myself, Kristina, I've been here for about now 17, almost 18 years in Switzerland. So I did all my studies here. I was in school in Lugano, then I did École Hôtelière de Lausanne as a bachelor and HEG Fribourg as a master degree. And finally, I came up with the concept during my master degree of Totap, which is my first kind of direction and main direction of business. So I have a chain of private daycares, bilingual, English and French. And then I also have in Geneva a primary school, a family fitness center, and a beauty salon. And then just have 2 more daycares in Canton de Vaud, and about 3 more are opening in the following 2 years. The ones that are signed already, but projects are coming back and forward. And then I also have a small bar with the friends in Flon and Lausanne in the city center. That's a business where we are 4 partners. And a couple of other businesses. I'm a part of several associations, and also another project with the babysitting, a quick babysitting online concept with the website, also with a partner. So I'm working pretty much with all types of companies, independent people, and opened myself a couple of different structures. The main one, I didn't put it up, but I guess everyone knows just the SA, SRL, and the holding. And then there is an independent status as well. Quickly, just a brief description of different companies. So the SRL or SA, the only difference in those 2 types of companies is the amount of money you put inside in the beginning. So to open an SRL here, you need 20,000. For SA, 100,000. Those are the money that are put into the bank account, and then they're liberated after the company is registered. And then you can use them for investments, etc. Depending, we'll talk through that also in terms of financing. But what is interesting to know is that SI is obviously for outside people, looks more serious, obviously because there is more money invested in. So if you're planning to rent spaces, commercial lease, etc., it's better to have an SI. It's better seen than an SRL. And then for independent status, you still can, it works out as a company, but it's in terms of taxes, it's different. So the independent status, you declare your revenues in your personal tax declaration. And the company, it's a moral person, so completely independent from you. We'll start by some basic knowledge. Not sure how well you are oriented in terms of that, but like the basic financial business plan. So I worked it out since a couple of years. It's a very, what I call an easy math as well, just available for independent or small, medium companies. So obviously you have a turnover, then you have your costs, and then at the end you have the profit, and after the profit you can obviously amortize and then pay taxes. What is important here, and I find it's very useful, is that I've worked out since several businesses and consulting several businesses, I worked out the percentage in terms of Switzerland, because what you need to know about Switzerland, your most cost is rent and people. And it actually goes on the other direction. So it's first people, that's the most expensive cost that you would have in Switzerland. And then it's the rent. Depending on where you are, it might be quite large percentage of your costs. So for the salaries, you need to know that when you would have an employee, depending on 50, 100% or whatever, you would need to pay the social charges. The social charges here in Switzerland are divided 50-50. So 50% is deducted from the salary of the person and 50% is covered by the company. So meaning that when you take a person to work, let's say her salary or his salary is 5,000, you need straight away to add 10% on top of it to know what is your real cost for that person. And then the person who you take into job, it might be very weird, but a lot of people do not know the difference between brut and net. And it's very important when you take people to work that you talking usually in Switzerland, they talk brut, so before taxes and social charges. And then it's better always to just emphasize on what you're saying to the person in terms of salary. Specifically, it's if you are getting someone paid by hour, because that's where the most confusion comes. If you say to a person, I'll pay you 25 francs per hour, then you need to specify that it's brut, because then from our hourly salary, you will deduct the AVS. The social charges, you have 4 main ones. So it's AVS, which is the first level of your pension fund. Then you have the LPP. LPP is charged to people who have a salary of more than 1,500 Swiss francs per month. And then you have the accident insurance for your employees. And you as well have the chômage, which is the loss of job social charge. All of those social charges bring up to about 20% in total of from the salary, which is divided 10 and 10. That's why I'm saying that to know your real cost on the top of the salary you'll pay to your employee, you need to add the 10% more. You have to always think about replacement. A lot of people in financial business plans forget to put this point in. So they think, okay, this is my salary volume, but then they don't take into account because people have a right for vacations, people may get sick, and depending on what kind of person, what kind of job this person does, it must be also taken into account, and you have to put about 10 to 15% of the cost for the replacement. Meaning that if a person is sick, you get someone else, you pay the person who is sick, and then you need to pay the person who is replacing that person. In any type of business, it's about 10 to 15% annual add up to the cost. What is important about salaries is fixed and variable. So the fixed salaries are the ones that are working for you with a constant contract, which is called here indéterminé, CDI, meaning that it's written on how you can, so the person is working for you, he usually has 3 months of trial period, and then after the trial period, you negotiate how much time in advance your employee or you to your employee need to take, to say in advance that you don't want to work and continue to work with that person. Knowing that usually in terms of law, it's minimum 30 days. You can extend it to 2 months. How do you decide? You decide on how replaceable the person is. An example, I have my directors and I have educators as well. Let's say for me, an educator is much easier to replace than a director, because the director knows much more information and he has specific training for the financial systems, etc. So for me to, if my director will wanna leave me, I need to know with minimum 3 months in advance so that I can prepare someone else for that position. But the risk of that, of having a longer period to dismiss a person, is that when it goes wrong, when you are not happy with the work of the person, even after the 3 months trial period, if something happens, it's quite hard to fire people in Switzerland. So you need to take that as well into account, meaning that if you would want a person leave right away, then you would need to pay him this 2 or 3 months that are signed in the contract. You cannot just dismiss him without paying this dismissal period, basically. You would also have maybe variable cost. A lot of independent people, they work with partners or people who just come help them during the event, for example. It's not people who are fixed for your job, but for event management, that's very important, which called here extra. So those are people you just hire them for one event to prepare, to help you prepare, to be your assistant during the event, etc. You would pay them by hour. It's a short-term contract. You discuss their hourly paid, and then no one owes not much to anyone. The risk with variable salaries and costs for you in terms of your business is that they non-show up to work, because they're not contractually, usually if they're not coming, the cost of bringing that person to the court or something like that would cost you much more than just replace that person with someone else. So event management, very important to have a very large list of people who could work for you in case there is a non-show up. By the way, if you have any questions or I'm talking too fast, don't hesitate to let me know about that. You would need to also make sure that your contracts are written or at least checked by a lawyer. In Switzerland, it's a big problem. People think they can just Google a contract, then just modify it by themselves. And then that creates 1,000 more problems later. Basically, what I mean by that is that the Swiss law is very precise, very hard to fire people. And people here, in most cases, know their rights very well. So you need to, it's gonna cost you less to pay 300-400 francs to a lawyer to check the contract than to sign something that after you're not in law or after creates you even more problem and you need,
No, just carry on, finish your sentence. I mean, you don't want it to interrupt, but you just said that it was very hard to hear in Switzerland fired people, but I think from the country where I come from France originally, it's super hard in France.
As well, I mean, I'm not comparing, I'm just saying that in Switzerland it is also hard.
In which respect? Because here, I think, to me, my perception since I'm living in Switzerland since 6 years, that actually the employees are not so well protected, because an employer can actually fire you without any type of valid reason, and just, they don't have to justify
it. Those employees are the ones that do not know their rights. There is special commission in Switzerland that exists that actually free for employees, where the employee can go and get the advice and then do a court with the employer. So obviously, I mean, employers are very different, huh? So you always find someone who just will try to fire you just like that, but there is law, and by law you need to have a valid reason. So most of the employers cover up their thing by restructuring of the company. We're restructuring of the company, all of a sudden we don't need 5 people, so we'll fire them. But what you don't know is that usually they pay those leave period to them, so the 2 or 3 months depending on their contract. And it's not said very often, even by employees. Sometimes they say, I was just fired just like that. But actually, usually the companies do pay the 2 or 3 months leave, because otherwise they can be pursued by court. And then there is punishment, financial punishment for the company. So they don't usually risk on that. And then you can fire someone on the spot without paying that, but you need to have a very good reason, and it depends on the business. For example, in my case, I can dismiss an employee on the spot if he commits a mistake which puts in danger the children. And even there, the line is very, because it's like, for example, an accident with a child on a playground wouldn't be considered as a right reason to fire, because that's something that can generally happen. So depending on the industry, you have to know that. For the event management here, because I see that a lot of people are very interested in event management, you need to know that employees of hospitality, restaurants, hotels, etc. are very well protected by law. They have a very strong union. They have minimum salaries. So a person who did, for example, École Hôtelière, doesn't matter each, like Lausanne one or any other, they have a minimum salary, which is 3,800 Swiss francs. So a waiter or someone who is working in your restaurant, if it's a Swiss person with the Swiss education in hospitality, you would need to pay him 3,800 Swiss francs. You always have a bit of frontaliers coming from France, etc. You can negotiate a lower salary with them. But even now, the frontaliers, they also know the general market price of Switzerland, so they demand more or less the same salaries. There is also a minimum rate by hour that is applicable, and it's 25 Swiss francs for people with education. Then for extras like students, for example, who don't have nothing to do with the école hôtelière or education in this term, slightly easier. You can pay them, well, they do agree at about 20 francs per hour brut. So about 19, 18 and a half net. So management with education in this industry also has the minimum salaries. And those people know their rights very well. So when you come and you tell them lower salary, they'll tell you right away is that it's not the market and by law you cannot do that. So you have to consider really in your business that this part of salaries, charges and replacement would be 40 to 60% of your cost, independently on the business you do. I would say for like event management or people or businesses where you need a lot of people, you would be more to 60%. And like, for example, my daycares, I'm about at 60%. If it's a business where online business, for example, then depending who is going to do the work online, obviously the salary would be less, the percentage. Then the rent. Rent, as I just previously said, if you need a commercial space, it's better to have an SR because the owners would see you as more viable person in terms of the contract. So somebody who can put 100,000 francs in a company seems to be more serious than someone who can only put 20. They're more easily signing up those contracts, and you develop a better chances to get the commercial space. With the commercial space in Switzerland, also be very careful. Read the contract. A lot of things are put in the contract and never explained to the renter. You need to make it read by a lawyer as well, because some of the contracts are made in a very standard language and cases which might not be applicable to your business. So you need to make sure you know exactly what are you getting. Now in Switzerland, it's very popular to rent spaces, what they call brut. That means that you receive beton walls, floors and ceilings, and that's it. Nothing, no lights, no heating system, no ventilation. You just have one game in the middle or somewhere, and then you need to do all the works. So carry out the ventilation, carry out the heating, carry out the electricity, etc. That costs quite a lot of money in Switzerland. So you need to make sure you know what kind of space you are getting. If that's for the new places, then existing places, if you take over the lease or you take a vacant place, then you also get it as it is. So when you enter, what you see is what you're going to get. If you need to remove the walls, you're the one who are paying for that. If you need to build new walls, you are the one who is paying for that. Until you negotiate right away, before the contract signature, that an owner, might be a company or a private owner, is ready to finance part of your works. Usually for everything that is technical, so ventilation, heating and electricity, they usually agree to pay, but only the basic. So example from real life, for the daycares, for example, I need in each group, I need water and toilets. That owners do not agree to pay for that, because it's very specific to my own business. If I leave this space, they don't really need that many toilets in a commercial space. In a commercial space, you usually get just one sanitary block. Then you can still try to negotiate, but what they're going to do is that they're going to calculate their costs and they will spread it out through the rent. So they will charge you, but it's a kind of a credit from the owner. So they will never lose the money. They will just spread it. If you sign a contract for 5 years, they'll spread it in 5 years. If they sign a contract for 10 years, they spread it through the 10 years. If you will want to leave before the contract expires, you will need to pay back the money that is still due. So that is also quite quite important to understand. Commercial renting here is minimum 5 years. Most owners prefer 10. As an independent, you can rent a space. What is also important that independent status people can work out of home. So you can sign your independent status into your home address. It depends. There is also all the regulation. Usually it's written, so you have to have a separate room that is able to be closed by key. And sometimes they even do come to check, or they ask you to send a picture. So for example, if you're... Exactly, good, yeah. So if
your neighbors don't agree that you are doing, for example, in my case, I have received the confirmation. First of all, not all spaces I allow.
I'll elaborate on that, yeah.
So, anyway, there is a law that you have reglementaire of the house or apartment you are living in, and the community should be agreed. And you have to receive at Assemblée Générale the permission to run your business from home.
I explained to you how it works just before you ask the question. So what is happening? You have an apartment, you rent it, or you're the owner. The things are the same. If you're renting an apartment or you bought an apartment in a building where there is several apartments, you have here what it's called PPE, propriété par étage. When you sign a renting agreement with for your apartment, they have to give you, and it's very important, the regulation of the house. The same thing as if you buy the apartment. In this regulation of the house, there might be wonderful things. Like, for example, it can be said that you cannot have a barbecue at your place. Because when you cook, the smell goes up, blah, 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 etc., etc. And then if you do, and you have a naughty neighbor, he can write to the régie saying like, article number 14 says you cannot have a barbecue. And then they will ask you to remove the barbecue. And in this regulation, there is also a case where it says if companies or independent status can be registered to this address. It's done because, let's say, typically, if you are a piano teacher, and then you decide to give piano classes at your apartment as an independent, then maybe the neighbors are not going to be so happy because they're going to listen to the piano and not very good sometimes. So they're trying to protect it. So depending on the work you do, but you have to know that to be able to put on your mailbox the name of a company or independent status so that you can receive the post, you need for that a permission. And all the neighbors have to agree.
Also, but how many neighbors you have to ask for?
All. It's Assemblée Générale. So first of all, you already have to wait until the assembly.
So if you have 20 people living in your building,
Yeah.
you have to ask...
If one doesn't agree, you cannot. It's a majority. It's a majority.
No, normally in the regulation of your apartment, it is written which percentage, and it could be percentage by apartments or percentage by square meters. And if there is, for example, one person with a huge apartment and he or she will not agree, you will not get your permission because your percentage in square meters will not be achieved. So be careful when you will
Read it.
In every apartment, and if you didn't receive, you ask it from the owner, the regulation of PPE. And if, for example, you want to run your business from your apartment and it's not mentioned or it's not clear,
Write a letter.
Request in written the explication of your rights, because sometimes the things are really weird. It could be really, really weird situation.
And that's valid for the canton of Geneva?
For any canton, it's valid. It's any cantons in Switzerland. In some cases.
And not all buildings allow you to work from home officially, because there are particular zones where it's only residential area, you can work from there. I'm saying you can be a writer, but you cannot, for example,
be a piano teacher or receive people, etc. There is
it depends.
there is a lot of things that there are some people who do it still without even asking the permission.
I did.
Exactly. That you can, like, technically you can, but if in the regulation,
Naughty neighbor, you
yeah,
might be in trouble. That's it.
Okay.
So you
they
can
might
go
go up until canceling the rent contract with you.
exactly, and
They have a right to do that.
then you
Even
will
if
have a
I'm the
note.
owner of the apartment, I can do whatever.
If you're owner of the apartment, it's going to be treated in Assemblée Générale, and usually in the in the PPE reglement, it's also written the fees that you'll pay to your PPE as a amount as a penalty.
And actually, you will be also not only fined by the penalty, but you might also receive, for example, if you are renting an apartment, in your file there will be a note that you are not respecting, and you will be in trouble to find another apartment.
Wow.
So just be careful and read papers. There are a lot of nuances which are normally hidden, and it's enough to have just one well aware and not very friendly neighbor to really break your plans.
Okay,
Yeah.
but this is valid for the independent statue. But I also maybe I'm mistaken. There is also this statue of freelancer.
Yeah, it's the same.
It's also the same for this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I have a question?
Yeah.
It's like, for example, if I'm photographer, let's say,
Mhm.
and I'm producing the pictures and I'm retouching them, like, so I'm trying to sell it. From which moment should I create these statues, let's say, of independent? Like,
Okay, so
it's like a particular amount?
yeah, it's that's in terms of money. It varies from one canton to another. In Canton de Vaud, I think it's if you gain more than 16,000 per year, and you have at least 3 contracts with clients, you can register to the independent status.
But before that, I don't need to do anything. It means
Before that, you don't need to do anything, but declaring what you receive in your personal tax under the there is
16,000, for example.
yeah whatever you gain, you need to put a real number.
Okay.
And they might ask you for the bills to show the facture, to send them the bills, etc., to make sure that it's what you're putting is a real number. And in déclaration d'impôt, it's called autres revenus. That's under that other incomes, exactly.
And in Geneva?
In Geneva, I'm 1,500
It's all available online in the
independent, indépendant, statut indépendant, and they have all the documents and explanations.
And after that point, you have to be registered somehow, like
Yes.
you're a freelancer or independent.
Yes.
You're obliged.
Yes.
Yes, if you have depassed
Yeah.
the amount,
You have
you are
to register.
Obliged.
to register. Otherwise, you are breaking the law.
Law.
Yes, because from this particular moment, you have to pay AVS and all this stuff. Because when you are below this amount, you are only paying the income fees of your regular taxation. But as long as you are above this amount, you have to pay AVS, you have to pay insurance, and it's a law. So that's there is no choice. Otherwise, you reduce your income. You cancel clients, you reduce fees, then you and remain in
The small.
Yeah. No, and if the person is declared or not, that's not your problem. But typically, it's also again, be careful. Like for example, for me, when I hire my professors for yoga and dance, etc., for me it's important that they are registered, because if something happens with the kids, I'd like to have a proof that I've hired someone with the diploma, registered, etc. If it's an event management and you just need waiters to bring up the food or help you decorate, I mean, you really don't care. Until they kill someone during the event. Then it's a bit more problematic, but usually it won't happen.
I have a question. So, for example, like for independent person, what will be the interest to move to SA or SARO? like at which point the person might decide, like then at the moment when it starts to recruit people and like to ask for a bank some loans and
Exactly.
to
Yeah.
grow, and he works like alone, mainly providing his
Yeah.
services and like hiring this kind of manda, it doesn't make sense to create a company for him.
Doesn't make sense. Again, it also depends on each type of business. But let's say it's also important to say, as an independent, you can also have an employee.
You can have an employee.
As an independent, of course.
But
It
then you
works
will
the
have
same
all
way
these
as with the
salaries,
company.
taxes and
But in
things.
that case, this is welcome, depending on how much you get.
I would like to add an answer also to your question. It's when you exceed 100,000 per year your revenue, then you need to go further to
As well.
SRL.
You're obliged.
100.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Of the
I'm
turnover.
saying it softly, you need, but of course, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
following the rules.
And also there is an issue, if I'm not mistaken, if as a photographer you want to hire a studio, then as an independent, you might not have a chance to find
Yeah,
a studio.
that's what I was saying before, is that for like if you need to rent a space, companies would not be so happy to rent it to an independent. The risks are too high. They would prefer an SRL or SA.
Yeah, because independent, he's responsible himself for, let's say, any
Yeah.
problem in finance, and in that case, the company is this capital.
And you have a capital which is like assurance.
Assurance for the okay.
for
And
the
as
partner.
independent, you don't need to put any capital to register
No,
yourself.
you
No.
don't.
It's
but
depending
It's
on
like
the
you're
loan, there
liable
is
by
some
your
fees.
own ownings. let's say.
but
This is
it-
another
it's
question
very
about the
important.
private taxing, and it's very important point. That's also when you do a choice between being an independent and having a company.
Mhm.
As an independent, you are reliable for everything. Everything
With
you
everything
own
you have.
can be demanded from you. Example, you have a car. The car costs 50,000. You work as an independent. You don't pay the bill to your employee or manda or I don't know for
Because you don't have money, let's say.
you don't pay some bills. They send you to poursuite. Poursuite, you tell to poursuite, I don't have money, I didn't gain anything, I didn't have clients this month. They will look into what you have and they say, you have
Sell
a
your
car,
car.
50,000. Sell your car, pay the money you owe to people. With the company, they cannot do it. A company is a moral person apart from you. Whatever you have as a private cannot be touched until it's proven that that
You're using it for your company.
no, this is another question. This is a tax question more, but in terms of responsibility, until it goes very important when you wanna bankrupt a company. So meaning that if your business is not turning and you need to do faillit, so bankrupt your company, if they see that you bankrupt your company because you're managing it badly, and because, for example, you've taken too much money for yourself, so you're making returns of your investment too early, and because of that, the company is not turning. Then they can do it, they call it faillite frauduleuse, and then they can make a study on it and tell you how much of your private money you need to pay to people you owe the money to. So make sure about that. And it's also when I was talking about returning the money of the investment, you cannot just do it just like that. Like 1 month you made a lot of money and then you just say, oh, yippee, I'm just gonna get the 20,000 back. If next month you have employees, you have to pay money and you have the risk that you won't have enough clients to pay your employees, keep the money inside the company. And usually you do return on the investment at the end of the year. But be careful
After all
because of that.
payments.
After all the payments and not before the 31st of December. Because there is also what you as a private, you pay impôt sur la fortune. I think everyone knows that. Huh? What is going to happen is that if on the 31st 12th you get out 100,000 Swiss francs to your private account as a return on investment, you will be taxed impôt sur la fortune. If you do it on the first, you get that money out, you have 1 year to spend them, so that at the end of the year, you don't have the fortune. Or add into your fortune if you have already an apartment, you're already paying impôt sur la fortune in any case. So this is very important. Also, another very interesting thing, how AVS, LPP and all this goes. This is very important to know when you start the business. What is happening, I'm just gonna take this.
Can you take pictures before you?
You can take after pictures as well
Yeah.
if you're too far away, or whatever, I'll give you the opportunity to do it. When you open a company, right, you don't know how many employees you're gonna have, you don't know the volume of the salaries you're gonna pay, you don't know anything, you have just an idea. Let's say you start a company, or even in independent hiring people, like let's say you have a beauty salon. Let's take a very easy example. You are a cosmetologist, so you say, okay, I'm gonna open a beauty salon. Alone as a cosmetologist, not very interesting. Maybe I'll hire also a hairdresser and the person who does manicure for my clients. So I have a full spectrum of service. Let's say you created an SRL, because in this case it's more interesting for you because your investment will be normally higher than 20,000 Swiss francs. So it's more interesting right away to do an SRL. That's also to you going back to your question. If in your business you would need to do an investment higher than 20,000 since the beginning, it's better for you to open a SRL right away. So you say, okay, I'm gonna hire one person who's gonna gain 2,000 Swiss francs and another one 1,000. It's just for easy to calculate the numbers. It's not real pricing or whatever. And maybe like the one who is having 1,000, maybe he works just 2 days. That's why the salary is so low, because it's a hairdresser that comes only on Mondays and Thursdays. And this one is maybe working at 50%, whatever. So when you created the company, you need to declare to AVS, LPP, and all the rest of amazing insurances, etc. They will ask you already to declare the yearly volume of salaries. So let's say you don't pay the 13th salary, the total salary that's in the beginning of the year, that's what you estimate. You say, okay, I'm gonna pay about 3,000 brut, so it's always in brut. And you say, okay, I'll multiply that by 12. Who's good in math? 12, 30, 34.
36.
36. 36, that's what you declare to AVS. And LPP and the rest of things. Sorry, because maybe I just thought about it, maybe not everyone knows. AVS is about 10%, so broken to 5 and 5% between employee and the employer. LPP is the only thing that is not calculated in terms of percentage. LPP is a fixed number. It's a very you will never know how to calculate it. Only the insurance company knows that, because the calculation is very complicated. It depends if your employee is married or not. Does the employee have a kids or not? How old is the employee? The older the employee is, higher that would be, etc. So basically, an employee has to fill out all the information, and then you send those documents to LPP. And then they will send you back the fixed number. In general, for the average aged employee with 1 kid, it's about 6 to 7%. It can be much higher. So what is going to happen? So here, what the AVS will do, they'll say, okay, you declared 36,000, you need to pay us 3,600 per year. That's what for the AVS. Half of it is deducted from the salary of your employee, Half of it is you who are adding the money, but this one is the 10% from that. But it might happen that during the year you've added a person, or somebody left and not working anymore. AVS will not do the adjustment right away. You've declared that is what you're gonna pay until the end of the year. And it's like taxes here. I think all knows, huh? You fill in the tax, they send you first the bills, you pay over 1 year the bills for the taxing, for your taxes, and then only next year you do a real declaration for the past year, and then they readjust. If you paid too much, they give you the money back. If you didn't pay enough, you have to add the money. The same thing works here, meaning that at the end of the year, you will send them the real numbers. This is only your estimation. At the end of the year, somebody left, you got a new employee, somebody, you always declare that during the year to the AVS, but they will not adjust right away. At the end of the year, you will send them the real numbers with the certificate of travail of each employee, etc., etc. And let's say you, instead of 36,000, you are at 45. So you had to pay 450, but during the year you paid only 3,600. About beginning of February, you will receive the bill for the difference. And that is important when you're getting the money out of the company. Because at the end of the year, you're not sure if you're not going to have a fun surprise from AVS or LPP.
Which means you need to keep a bit more. And
Exactly. You need to always have a reserve for these wonderful surprises.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what you need to know about LPP, very slow people. When you hire someone, it takes about 2 or 3 months for them to actually give you the amount of money that you have to deduct. So, in your accounting system, you'll estimate by yourself. That's why I'm saying it's good to have an accountant who more or less could be able to estimate. And then you need to deduct this amount from your employee. And then when you receive the amount, you do the readjustment on the next month.
And it's better to inform the employee in
Before.
advance, because otherwise the employees could be very sensitive.
So when you do your estimation, basically you are already paying your estimation through the
Yeah.
year, and so can you spread the payment, or you have to pay
So,
once?
It depends. LPP, AVS, yes, you can spread it by months. Assurance accident, assurance maladie, no, it's a one-time payment in the beginning of the year.
I don't know how it works with SA, but AVS comes once per 3 months.
It depends
It's not
on
monthly.
it depends what you have on your contract, and it depends on the size of your company as well. Usually they give you 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year. If you pay 1 year, you get a discount. Not a very big discount, but you do get one. But otherwise, if your company is sufficiently big, you can do it by months. If you're just an independent, usually they ask you to do it every 3 months.
Every 3 months for independent.
But it depends on the contract, on the status, on how much money you gain, and on your ability to pay. So with the LPP, as I said, so your accountant would estimate how much you have to deduct from that person. 3 months after, you will receive the real number. Then you recalculate for your employee. You tell him in advance, the certificate of the first 2-3 months until I receive the numbers is not the correct one, and we will need to adjust later. Because in some cases, you usually estimate it too low, and then it's much higher, meaning that the employee at some point will have 1 month where he will have to pay for the 3 months that passed. Do you see what I mean? So he will receive a lot less money, and it might create like, oh my God, they forgot to pay me. or
Oh,
they.
so you mean okay, so it's as if the employer is cutting the salary somehow.
It's no.
No?
No.
Okay, so
No.
okay.
So if you know how the salary certificate looks like, you have salaire brut, then you have AVS, LPP, chômage, assurance accident, maladie. When I'm saying maladie, it's not what you pay for your diseases. This is when your employee was injured and he's out for 1 month, then you can get the money back for him. Those are the contracts that also depends. You have 3 days, 1 week, and 2 weeks. 3 days costs hell a lot of money. Don't do it. 3 days, meaning that the insurance will start paying you back for the sick employee after the first 3 days. Or after the first 7 days, or after the first two weeks. In general, everyone takes 2 weeks. Because in terms of the cost of the insurance and the risks, you it's okay.
You must buy it or no?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
It's not nice internet with accident.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, this is, well, it can be an accident as well. An employee broke his leg for 1 month, he's not at work. It's about your company. Because while he's 1 month out, you need to replace him.
Yes, but like I never heard before. In other countries, I never seen.
Yeah, but here you have. So,
Yeah, it exists also in Italy. Yeah.
Yes, really.
and then he gets his net salary. So those ones are percentage. So easy to calculate. This one is a fixed number. So you estimate this employee will have to pay 300 francs. 300 francs, 150 for you, 150 from him. And you say, okay, this is deducted, 150 francs. He receives his salary because he's already working, or she, works. After 3-4 months, depending on their efficiency, you receive, and it's actually not 300, but 420, or let's say 400. So it's 200 that you had to deduct from him for the past 3 months, but you deducted less. So the fourth certificate, you will have LPP 200, and then you will add correction LPP, the 50 francs. So for his side, it's only 50. 3 months, 150. But depending on the person's salary, age, etc., sometimes the difference you estimated is big. So instead of for him receiving 4,000 at the end of the month, all of a sudden he receives this 3,200. And it's better, it's just ethically speaking, would be better to make sure that employee understands that. And he takes that into account.
But is it because that's also like an issue when they sign the contract? They also agreed on a certain amount of money they're receiving.
Brut.
Yes, brut.
Brut.
But still, I mean, if they do the calculation, if they receive the
That's why you tell them.
Oh. So you can tell them, yeah, okay, the first week's amount you're gonna get this.
Yes, we're gonna estimate your LPP at that. As soon as we receive the official paper, he will receive the copy of the official number.
Not, actually.
There is no choice.
Okay.
But this person had completely the same estimation at previous.
Not necessarily, because in previous work he was 30, and now he starts to work, he's already 31. Maybe in between he had a child, maybe in between he got married or got divorced.
It's everything inflated.
Depends.
Wow.
The second pillar, most complicated thing to estimate. Every time something changes in your life, LPP will change. Specifically about every year. Because you're getting older. But no, I think it's by 5 years. That it's in terms of the age.
After 23, I think it increases a lot.
Yeah, after 23 there is a different, and then after 45 it also increases. So just to make sure, this is I think quite important to know, and that's why at the end of the year when you think you paid everything, just remember, surprise, AWS LPP will get back to you. So what we usually do, for example, me in my business, I always estimate higher because I like at the beginning of the year to get the money and not to give them. So I usually right away say to AWS, okay, in Canton Vaud, we just opened the daycare. Obviously, we're not filled at 100% right away. We're now at about 65%. So obviously, I don't have all my employees in. But I know that when the daycare is at 100%, my salaries are at about 65,000 per month for the employees. So me, the company is opened, I right away declare 65,000. Even though right now we're at about 28, 29, 32,000.
And they give you the money back after how long? No? 3 months?
They give it back.
They give you back. Okay.
Sooner or later.
Yeah, sooner or later.
Usually for like this, for the maladie as well, you get the money usually like 1 month, 2 months after. So that's why here I told you, do estimate remplacement. Parce que your salary, you need to pay that at the end of the month. So the first month, even if you have an employee sick, the other one is replacing him, you will not get back the money right away. So you have 1 or 2 months where you pay a double salary before you're receiving the money from the insurance. And actually, in terms of the business plan, look at this as a fixed cost because it will happen at any time. And if it doesn't happen during the year, it's a bonus. But do consider it. Be a bit more it's better to be more pessimistic in terms of finance to be able to after to be more happy, let's put it that way, because if you're too optimistic about the finance and then you end up with minus, then you have burnout. Exactly.
Or bankrupt.
Are there more questions?
For example, if you want to start a company for financing, let's say you hesitate between SA and SARL, but let's say you have in your own, let's say instead of 100, you have on your own, let's say 60,000, and you want to open 100 company. So, like, how bank looking at it? You're able to work, or you have to put proper investment? Let's say you have to have your own money that you put directly yourself.
Yes.
Or you do it like with some partners.
No.
Like,
Oh no, you can do it with partners.
I mean, definitely. But the bank, you cannot ask the loan
Ah,
for the
no.
bank to open.
No, okay. Banks in Switzerland,
It's just like
they don't give credits for businesses at all. Except if you are a super smart guy in a TFL and you do a startup on how to cure cancer, forget about it. If they give money better for if you need to construct, so if you need to do the works for the renting space that you have, and you need to invest a lot of money in that, they might consider, but what you need to know. Banks in Switzerland, conditions of receiving a loan. Your company needs to exist 3 years. Your company, at least in the last year, has to show profit. If this is not there, no loan. So if you're a startup, as I said, except if you are right now creating the cure for cancer, no. Businesses like restaurants, bars, forget about it. Too risky for the bank, they will never finance. What else? If you buy property, they will finance. that works a bit as an hypothec. You can buy also commercial property. What you need to know is that for the apartment, you need to have 20%, and then bank will be ready to finance up until 80%. This is living space. What you need to consider is that only possible if the banks estimates the apartment at the same price as they are buying it for. Am I making myself clear?
Yes.
So if somebody is selling your apartment for 2 million, I can see that maybe it's not clear for everyone. Somebody is selling your apartment for 2 million because there is a view lake and I don't know, a big garden, but the apartment is in a very bad condition. The bank can have a right to go and see what you're buying, and they will ask you for the plans and for the contract and and they might say, okay, no, for us it's not 2 million. We estimate it at 1.5 million. So in that case, the 2018 is gonna work for 1.5 million, and the 500 other, you need to put it by yourself. Commercial, it's 30 to 40% your money, and they'll finance 70 to 60. You bank. Commercial for them is much more risky, so they will only do it in this scenario. It might go higher depending on the business you're gonna put in this commerce. If you're just buying it to after rent, you would be more to 30% because it's less risky. You will always find a tenant who will be there. You will have a contract for him with 5 years. He's the one who is responsible, etc. If you say, okay, I'm buying the property and I'm gonna put a daycare, they'll say 50 to 50. If you say I put the restaurant, 60 to 40. Bar, 60 to 40 as well. So it really depends on how you're gonna do, and it's quite a big. After, when you have already the 3 years, the first year is positive, etc., they're a bit more open to lending you money, but mostly again only for the big projects where you need to construct, buy furniture, etc. Things they can, if you are not paying, get back.
Well, then the next question could be then, how can we get the finances ready?
Friends and family.
Friends and family. So no private investors and stuff.
Oh, if you find, maybe, I mean, you can have partners, you can be several people doing business.
So friends and family, okay.
But it's the most reliable source, to be honest, because
There's no interest rate.
Well, depending on families, but
after it's necessary to understand that, for example, in Switzerland they have some particular areas where they would like to invest, but usually it's not.
yeah, like event management or bars or restaurant, that's not what they invest in. Each canton, actually, you can go to the canton website, to economy department, and they even have a list of industries that they like, in which they'd like to invest. But usually it's either pharmaceuticals, either high engineering, like very technology, etc. So it's never like restoration, tourism,
service, no, it's
not services. Yes.
It's a knowledge that.
We're almost at time. Any more?
We are already behind. If it was until 12, so it's 12:15.
It was started at 9:30, so we still have maybe 1 or 2 questions if there is any question.
Oh, I have another one, sorry. So for all the legal questions that we might have in the future, since, I mean, with your experience, you know a lot about like everything, what would you recommend us to look at for this type of question when, like, for example, like what are the resources basically that we can have access to, like at our levels when we start? I mean, it's not very obvious for us to, I mean, to know everything about finances, all the percentages and
Yeah,
stuff.
take a fiduciaire. Fiduciaire costs you about 150 to 200 francs per hour. get a consultation with a fiduciaire for 3-4 hours, expose to him your business plan, pay those money. It's gonna cost you less than making mistakes.
Okay, and so for us, for our own knowledge, like I guess the fiduciary will not explain us in detail this, or they will. I mean, they have to.
I mean, you need to, but I mean, as I said, the general websites of Canton and
Right.
Switzerland, they're quite well done. There is a lot of explanations inside that as well.
Okay.
Me personally, I was very interested because I know that business is, finance in business is the core thing to do. I did myself with SEC Lausanne, it's called in Geneva. There is also as well, it's a École de Commerce. They have short-term classes for like 6 months in beginning of comptabilité. I took those classes just exactly to know at least you in 6 months you don't learn it like you are not an accountant, but at least what accountant tells you, you may understand.
That's what I was trying to.
Migros school also has
Migros
similar
school has some
course.
courses, so at least try to go to 1 or 2 courses in terms of finance and accounting, Swiss accounting, Swiss laws, just to be able to make sure that the person in front of you tells you
Doesn't tell bullshit.
exactly, yeah. Even later, if you have a business that works, an accountant does the accounting work for you, never just trust the accountant. You need to be able to understand numbers by yourself.
Yeah.
Because you're still responsible. But that's a good thing to start. And usually, like Migros school or the SEC École de Commerce, the classes are not that expensive. I mean, I think for 6 months I paid like
Besides, you
$1,700.
could declare as expenses if you
Well,
are already
exactly.
registered.
Right.
As a registered independent, do you have to pay something per year? For example, if you registered and you didn't
No, you
start
pay
your
at the
activity.
beginning, depending on the canton, from
You are
600
paying anyway AVS.
AVS,
That's
yes.
for sure.
Even if you don't have turnover?
No. If you are not having turnover, you have to close your activity.
You have to close
Yeah.
everything.
You have to inform, but anyway, for this year you will, if I'm not mistaken, I didn't go through it yet, but they are working as taxation. You will pay for this year, then they will return.
Yeah, but that's what I
If
was
I'm
saying.
not
It's
mistaken.
about LPP, etc. So the taxation, because you will declare at the end of the year for next year, they'll send you already the bills to pay each month, but you will give them real numbers only the year after.
Exactly, and if I'm not mistaken, there is also the manner to pause business, not to stop, but to
Yeah.
pause. For example, if you are a photographer and due to COVID you cannot do your business, you can also notify them. But actually, you can contact them directly. The organization is called OCAS, OCAS.
Yeah, very good one.
They respond to all questions immediately, and you can go there for free of charge consultation at any time, and they are very available. Normally there is no queue, nothing, and you address them directly, and they are very friendly and quite professional, and most of them speak English. They will answer all your questions. When I have been started, they have been the main source of reliable information. They even helped with some questions about taxation and all this stuff. So
And
I
guess-
do recommend to address there directly, and unfortunately, me personally, I have to go because I have another.
I would like
Thank
to
you
add
for
also something about AVS. You can choose to start to pay either straight away or to wait until you have 2,300 francs as a turnover. After 2,300, you're obliged to pay AVS. Before that, you can still launch your business. Mhm.
Okay. 2 or 3
2,300.
or per year.
No, per year.
Per year.
Yeah, in general. Yeah. As a beginning. Yeah, when you are just starting, you
but
are not
it's per
obliged.
year. Just make sure when you say that to people, they think it's per month.
No,
per year.
when you are starting, I mentioned when you are starting, yeah, so it's like when you reach that turnover, 2,300, then you are obliged to, of course, if it will be sooner than 1 year, of course, then it will
Yeah.
happen for you after 2 months, it depends on your business.
Okay.
But again, it works the same way. Better start paying, declare at least a small sum and pay AVS it's better always to get the money back than at the end of the year to have a surprise.
It depends on how much risk you are ready to take.
For sure.
People are different. There are those who are fine with being in debt. This is why we have what we have in America. So.
Any other questions?
You've been very, very clear, informative, and I really loved your presentation with plenty of humor. So,